And if you want to talk about bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond, grandmaster, one above all, eternity, whatever, this is how you need to position with Winter Soldier. I see a lot of people that say, oh, in Marvel Rivals, you shouldn't be splitting from your team ever, and it's just complete falsehood. Even in higher ranks, nobody should ever speak anything like that. Let's talk about Winter Soldier. So Winter Soldier is a short to medium range DPS / duelist. And essentially what this means is that you got a character that can kind of function. It could be anywhere from like 5 meters to 20, 25 meters, somewhere around that range. Some people look at him as an anti-dive character. We're not going to really get into that as much today, but we're basically saying you play a character to their effective range. And the fundamentals of first-person shooters is angles and map control. Now that can sound very boring and very complicated, but the reality is very simple. The reality of angles is that you have a team applying pressure from here, which means that the entire enemy team is focused on this one specific position. So Winter Soldier, you should be taking a slight split off to the left or to the right, depending on the map, and you're going to apply pressure from a similar position, but from a slightly different angle. I mean, this is exactly what an angle is, right? This is a triangle. You have application of pressure from here, and you have application from you on the side. Now, how deep that angle is really your choice. So Winter Soldier can take shallow angles, Winter Soldier can take deep angles, or Winter Soldier can be all the way around behind with what we generally call flanks. Now, he's not very good at that. We'll go more into that later, and he generally doesn't need to do that. We'll go more into that later. But the reality is that taking angles with Winter Soldier is absolutely required if you want to improve at this character, okay? The reason why angles matter, there's a complete multitude of reasons why angles matter. Number one is that you don't get hit by random spam damage. They have to selectively choose to focus you, and if they do focus you, they don't focus your team. So if your cover is good, you're able to utilize things like your ability to you're still able to get healing from your team without being an accidental casualty of whatever AoE ultimate damage, spam, whatever thrown your way. It also means for characters with mitigation abilities like Doctor Strange, Groot, and so on, they cannot shut off all of your team's damage with one wall or one shield. They have to selectively pick and choose, and it means that you're not reliant off of your tank's shielding to survive. You should not, and this is very important, guys, you should never, almost ever, be reliant off of your tank's mitigation to survive. You should be relying off of your tank's mitigation to apply pressure. In other words, a tank applying pressure here is a distraction. That's really what a tank is a distraction, is a, hey, look at me, absorb attention. So you are focused on applying pressure from your angle in the same general location as your team, and certainly at the same time as your team. That's really what timing is. Now, what your angle provides is it a way to go around the enemy team's mitigation, the way to distract the enemy team's mitigation and healing, better opportunity to go around tanks, because if you think about how tanks are positioned, even in a 6v6 format, it's more likely that you're going to be able to access backliners and DPS with your pressure if you go slightly to the side. And this one's really important. Angles deny cover. Your ability to go around angles is what denies cover. If you are able to find a position on the map here and look around, you're denying the enemy supports and the enemy DPS the ability to use cover. Angles is the most important function of denying cover in the enemy team. And if your team is able to take multiple angles, like let's say there's a Spider-Man on backline, you're on the angle, your tank line's here, maybe you got like, I don't know, a Hulk coming in from the side, you really deny the enemy team's ability to hide at all. There's nowhere for them to go. And you can do an angle while having cover, while playing at the same time as your team, and getting healing from your supports who should be able to heal you from range at the same time. And if you want to talk about bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond, grandmaster, one above all, eternity, whatever, this is how you need to position with Winter Soldier. I see a lot of people that say, oh, in Marvel Rivals, you shouldn't be splitting from your team ever, and it's just complete falsehood. Even in higher ranks, nobody should ever speak anything like that. There's only really one situation in which case you want to be stacked on top of your team, and that's generally when there's an active supportal, but you should almost never be stacked on top of your team. Now, at the same time, and this is something that I've learned with a lot of trial and error, is that generally you shouldn't be flanking with Winter Soldier. There are some exceptions, but generally Winter Soldier, because he is slower, because he doesn't really have self-sustain, he doesn't really have the time or the sustain ability to go all the way around and harass backline like a Black Panther, like a Spider-Man, like a Psylocke. But the good news is that you don't really need to. Winter Soldier can put out a lot of pressure on backline generally from just soft angles because of the fact that he has a more ranged weapon, but also he can actually be a real big tank bruiser. You see, the reality of taking an angle isn't just about, oh, I'm gonna bully the backline. You can also just bully tanks. Like if I'm a Doctor Strange here on Team Green, who do I put emphasis on? Do I deal with this Winter Soldier on the side, side or deal with a tank on the in front of me, right? Because Winter Soldier, with his extra HP, with his shield generation, with hook, with his slow, with his weapon, I mean, he has so many tools with which to bully tanks. And that's something that not a lot of other DPS characters have. When you take an angle here with Winter Soldier, it's really scary for flankers to take this route to go for your backline. One of the nice things about taking an angle is you also deny the enemy team from taking those exact same angles. And if you are a Spider-Man player, Black Panther, Psylocke, heck, even a character like Hulk that may go for backline, generally the best way to go for backline is to kind of go around, to sneak around behind. But to do so, you often will run into Winter Soldier. Now, if you go the other way, yeah, but at least that simplifies the directions that the supports have to look. So on the other side of things, oh, you should be inside of your backline because you have to protect your team with hook. No, absolutely terrible. You allow the flankers to take the angles for free, which then basically means that all they have to do is execute, and then basically make it either you hook them or you lose. It also means that when the flankers aren't flanking at that exact second, your frontline pressure is infinitely worse. Your backline pressure is infinitely worse. So again, let me reiterate here, you never, ever should be inside of your own backline. You should be within sight lines of your backline. You should actively contest angles that are being used by flankers. You should actively pressure that front line. But with the exception, thank you, of sitting inside of your backline or sitting inside your front line because of an active support ult, you really should never be playing there. Again, that doesn't mean that you have to flank, but the difference between an angle and a flank is just the extremity of how deep you're going behind. Now, public announcement here, if they for whatever reason reduce his shift, his uppercut ability from 12 seconds to, like, let's say 10 or 8, if they do introduce a passive heal into Marvel Rivals at any point in time, in other words, a heal that kicks in after not taking damage, that is going to open up the situations for Winter Soldier to flank, I will say. So if you see this and this has been implemented, flanks are more viable. They're just not necessarily going to be the optimal play. Okay, let's keep going here. Also, just maybe we should have put this at the start here, but I did get to Grandmaster on Winter Soldier, not playing for 7,000 hours and abusing the fact that we were able to get the Grandmaster within a reasonable period of time. I think it was like 140 games. I have coached professional team-based shooters for 6 or 7 years, coaching the Overwatch League, and I'm a huge Winter Soldier fan. So if that needs to be said, it's said. Okay, so let's talk about how these abilities complement the range and the angle. And we talk about, like, the range of Winter Soldier here. This is probably going to be like what your effective range plays at. Like, this is really where you got the sauce. You don't have fall off to worry about. You do a lot of damage. You have all of your abilities can reach this far. It's easier to land your slow, and even things like if you need to finish a kill for whatever reason, even your shift can just barely, like, I'm just a little bit close, but you have that opportunity to go there. Okay, so now let's talk about the abilities here and how they complement that angle. My tank here, me here, I would prefer to play some cover here, but let's say this is the angle here. Obviously, you'd prefer to be going over the other shoulder. Maybe that's another thing to point out here, guys, is that in the nature of the over the right corner visibility, I really like peeking from over my right shoulder. So if you can ever take a left angle with cover, that's generally going to be better than taking a right angle with cover, just because of the vision differential, right? So I have to peek so far to shoot, right? Like, look how much my hitbox, whereas with this, I can actually see, I can actually just shoot right there, like, but giving so little of my hitbox. So if you can choose a left angle peek with cover, that's generally going to be a little bit better. Other things as well as we talk about mechanics, crosshair placement matters. Like, there's no real reason for me to be, like, looking at the ground. I always kind of want to be aiming at head height 9 times out of 10. Now, there are a lot of characters in Overwatch and Marvel Rivals, Freudian slip, that can be approaching from verticality. So you need to be ready to kind of be looking in all directions. But basically, you could just abuse the fact of this. And I do this with Cassie all the time. Actually, let's talk about the weapon really quick. 3 shots. I believe it's 75. Yeah, 75 just got recently buffed to 75 damage each. That's a 150 headshot. Guys, that's a lot of damage. That is a lot of damage. And something that you may not even know if you don't check the hero thing is that it's area of effect. So if somebody is close enough, I don't think these guys are close enough, it will splash behind them. It goes, pierces, and it kind of explodes around them. So you can actually use that. I wouldn't really go out of my way to seek value for that, but, like, if you're on a good angle, you're going to get extra splash damage. The big thing with Winter Soldier is layering your abilities with your weapon and making every bullet count. It's extremely high damage, but the damage per second isn't necessarily all that high because of the frequent reloads. So what you kind of want to be doing is you want to make sure that every single shot counts. And we're going to bring in an old Overwatch concept that I've been coaching for a long time called trigger discipline. And this isn't even really an Overwatch concept. This is, again, a kind of a combat concept that we've kind of stolen for this game. And what that means is that generally, unless you're just kind of breaking shield or spamming at head height, you don't want to hold your mouse button down or control your toggle down. You want to selectively hit your shots. Give yourself time to adjust. And this, you got a Spider-Man diving on you, don't go, ah, right? Don't do this. Relax. Take the time. You only have 3 shots, so make them count. You only have the 1 hook, so make it count. You got to make sure that you hit that E, so make it count. So not just with your weapon, but with your abilities, especially when you're learning, it's really important to slow the process down. Not only is that a good habit to develop for long term, but that's also going to dramatically increase the capability of you learning mechanics. So crosshair placement, right shoulder peeking, utilizing your weapon and your abilities carefully, cautiously, trigger discipline, and so on. And remember, we'll put this out right now. All of your abilities reload your weapon. So we talk about 1, 2, 3, bam, 1, 2, 3, charge hook. 1, 2, 3, can use your shift. Now, I would never use my shift like that. Now, I would never just spam my abilities for no reason just to reload my weapon, because in reality, it's actually not even necessarily a faster reload. But if you have a reason to use your abilities, congratulations, you also get free reload. That's kind of the way to think about it, okay? So this is just a global thing that applies to all of Bucky's abilities. If you are being contested, there's a DPS on you, there's a tank on you, there's a support on you. I don't care if it's a Hela, Spider-Man, I don't care if it's Groot, I don't care. Your abilities are used to win the duel, to win the angle. Somebody's fighting me here, I use my hook, I use my slow, I use my uppercut. Everything goes on that target, okay? If you're not being actively contested on that angle, then you use your abilities for pressure from where you're at. So in other words, I'm shooting here, ah, somebody dives me. Hook them, shoot them, uppercut them, E them. Are you ready for this one? Ult them, sometimes. Okay, we'll get to that one a little bit later. But everything in my kit goes on to that person because they're contesting my powerful angle, right? But if there's nobody there, that's when Bucky can kind of just dump your cooldowns on the front line or on the back line or whatever you can reach, right? Let's move on from the weapon. And we're gonna go into that hook. So the first ability here is the hook. It does damage. It pulls people in. It is area of effect. So if you have multiple people lined up, I don't know if these guys are close enough. We'll see. But you can line up multiple people. Yeah, they're not quite close enough together. That again is not something you necessarily need to be looking for. You look for a hook and sometimes you accidentally pull 2 people. Great, congratulations, free value. The big thing with hook that you need to know is that the longer you charge it up, the farther it goes. So from here, fully charged, you can see that meter in the middle of my screen. That's just barely gonna get that. I think it can actually get a little bit further than that. But obviously if you got somebody directly on top of you, there's no real reason to fully charge it. So if I'm just right here, just tap it. That's all you need to do. The longer that you charge your hook, obviously it's opportunity cost. It means that you're not doing damage. So you really only want to fully charge your hook when you are really reaching far. Now, this is another one of those things we talk about utilizing cover. Apply pressure, charge the hook, peek the corner, bam, pull them in. Huge value. You could use the cover to disguise the hook and to spend the time charging the hook behind cover. There is a tech, which there's a lot of videos on this, but the tech is essentially you can turn as you hook and pull them slightly to the side. And then there's a brief opportunity here where you can actually reposition right afterwards. And even if you don't quite get your hitbox, look up how off my hitbox is, you can actually uppercut them into your team. Right? So there's a really important thing you could do with tanks, and that's super nice. You hook them in, you turn just a tiny bit, and you uppercut them into your team. Really valuable, and again, you saw that I wasn't even necessarily directly behind Luna Snow, so it kind of sucked her in. Really, really, really nice. That's a good tech to use. But yeah, hook frontline. Unless you get dove, then hook the person trying to dive you. If you could actually access a squishy from here, obviously that's even better than the tank, right? But I mean, hook is pretty self-explanatory. The more that you practice it, you'll get a feel for it. The biggest thing is that position that can allow you to reach people with hook is the challenge, okay? Oh, by the way, guys, I guess a note to the hook. The hook does cancel ultimates. A lot of ultimates, not all the ultimates. It used to cancel Thor ultimate. It doesn't anymore. It does cancel Strange ultimate. I believe if you time it, if you time it right, you can definitely cancel Psylocke ultimate. We're not going to go into the full list of ultimates that you can cancel, but I think that that's for another time. But yeah. It stops Spider-Man Ultimate, yeah. From there, we'll talk about the uppercut. The uppercut is probably the trickiest ability to use because it can be used to reposition. Bucky can take high grounds with it. Please don't pay any attention to what I just did there. If you could take a high ground angle with cover that plays to your effective range, it's really good to do so. You can use so to combo people that dive you. So I love using uppercut to, if something dives me, I miss my hook. I like the big thing with Bucky is if you get dove, you have to be brave. You can't panic and run away, usually. I think unless there's like a lot of enemy teammates, then you probably should run away. But like if you get dove by Spider-Man, get dove by Black Panther, you take it to him. Hit him in the mouth. Hit him in the mouth, right? People they underestimate, a lot of dive characters, how tanky Bucky can be, especially with the 275 HP with the shield regeneration. And when Psylocke's on me, and Spider-Man's on me, and Black Panther's on me, heck, if I hook a tank in, if I have any sort of healing at all, I'm gonna hit you in the mouth. Hit him in the mouth. And Shift is a great ability because it does a freaking butt ton of damage. I believe it's 90 damage, 100 damage. I mean, come on, guys. That's a lot of damage on a squishy character. It generates shields, and it also puts them in an arc where it's easier to hit your shots because they fall slowly, and you've reloaded your weapon. I think it's really important when you're playing this character that you're brave when you're getting pressured and that you confidently use your Shift unless there's a ton of targets going on you. Yeah, just shoot them. Just shoot. Shoot, hook. The only thing that you need to be using Shift for beyond that is if, like I said, if there's another position for you to go to, or if they pop an ultimate and you need to get away, or there's like 3 people on you and you need to get away, because it is a very good disengage tool and you probably should be using it. But if it's a one-on-one, use it. Yeah, interrupt Strange Ult. There's a couple of ultimates I think it interrupts beyond Strange Ult, but I might be wrong with that one. Okay, last ability, and this one's generally one of the easier ones. It's pretty easy to get value out of this one. This is the damage and slow. Now, the important thing here is, again, like all of Bucky's abilities, including his uppercut, it does cleave, it does damage, it actually has infinite range, so that's really, really nice. The damage isn't all that good, though. The real reason that you use it is for the reload, like we talked about earlier, and the slow, because the slow is pretty significant here. This talk about putting out free damage with a relatively forgiving hitbox. Well, how about you not only do that, but you slow the target down? Now, for you might be thinking, well, what is a slow good for? There's 2 reasons that slow is good. Number 1, it could put pressure on front line. You could just sit here, hold your angle, shoot. Oh, I missed my hook. That's okay. I'm gonna AoE slow the entire enemy team. Front lines, so they can't get behind cover, and so on. But selfishly, if you get dove, as slow is what will directly translate to 2 things. Either they can't get away from you in time, or it's easy to hit your shots. It's easy to hit your freaking shots, guys. It's really easy to hit your freaking shots when you slow somebody. You make it significantly easier for you to be able to output damage. So again, going back to this character's willingness to take fights, if something dives you and you hit your hook or you hit your uppercut, if you miss those abilities, you still have your slow. And that's going to make those shots afterwards even easier to land. It does pierce cleave. It's really good for ult. So remember the rule with both your hook, your uppercut, and your E. If you get pressure, you get dove, use your abilities. I'm not going to sit here and break down which ability you should use first because I think it's highly contextual. I also think it's highly flexible. I think it depends on the situation and you could experiment a lot with it. But remember, if I'm not being pressured on that angle, I'm just going to be spamming my E down choke and shooting tank. I'm going to be hooking tank. If I get a tank in, I might even hook it back into or uppercut it back into my team. But yeah, pretty straightforward here. Now, there's a lot of dynamics with how you could use your abilities. There's upsides, there's downsides, there's opportunity cost. You could use your uppercut to finish a kill. You could use your uppercut to get out. You could use your E in front line to slow them down. You can use E to keep yourself alive in the duel. I think a good general rule is, do you expect yourself to be dove or pressured? And if the answer is yes, then it might be worth saving an ability or 2. If the answer is no, throw it all on the front line. With the exception of maybe Shift, which I wouldn't necessarily want to leave my angle, okay? Now, and then the last part, Bucky, before we get into some gameplay review here to kind of demonstrate what I'm talking about, is the ultimate. Now, it's so much fun, guys. It's freaking amazing. It's the AoE ultimate in this game that I actually like. But that's going to happen. So the first things first is you have forced verticality in this ultimate. You are going to go up, you're going to hit walls, you're going to catch bridges, you're going to mess up, you're going to whiff, they're going to use a mobility cooldown, you're going to miss entirely. Get used to screwing this ultimate up and screwing it up frequently, okay? That's number 1. But number 2 is like, how do I actually use it? The best way to use Bucky ultimate is patience. Patience. Because the problem with this ultimate is it forces you to commit to risk. It forces you all the way in. And you don't have a lot of mobility options to get out. You really only have your Shift. So if you don't get a kill or a reset immediately, you might die. So do I just never use the ultimate? Well, no. I like to use this ultimate as fights devolve. Things start to get distracted, messy, cooldowns are used, maybe a support ultimate's used, that's optimal, and then find value with this ultimate. So the answer with Bucky ultimate is I would say one of the best ultimates in the game, up there with, I think, Star-Lord in terms of winning messy fights. Like if it's the cool ones are used, Bucky Ultimate's the best. Like you're just gonna get a 7K, right? But what do you do if the fight's not evolved? Can I just never use the ultimate? Well, partly true, yes, but I think that there are opportunities where you can use the ultimate. I think if we talked about one of those examples where you're getting pressured and dove on an angle, you use your abilities, just freaking solo ult, guys. Solo ult. Now, you do have to know that there are answers to that. Namor has his invulnerability. Hela has an invulnerability. Spider-Man can quickly disengage if you're not fast enough. So it's not a guaranteed, but there are lots of situations when that's appropriate. If you've seen that ability, you can absolutely solo ult the DPS. Win the 1v1. Don't hesitate. Don't hesitate. Look at the ultimate. Look at my HP as well. 50 HP right there. It's good. It's really good. It's really good. What the ult does, for those of you that don't know, I'm trying not to be read the wiki here, but if you really don't know, the ult just applies a lot of damage and a mark. So you see that little red part there? Notice that it died really quickly. It puts a threshold where if they drop below that threshold, they just instantly die. So not only does it do damage, but it makes them more squishy. And then if you get a kill with that, even if it's on a Loki copy, you get a reset in your ultimate, and then a reset in your ultimate, and then a reset in your ultimate, and so on, for as many times as it happens, okay? So use it on a solo. Anything that gets too close to you that you can kill. Mid-fight, you can absolutely go for backline when people are distracted, finish them off, no support ult. You can use it on frontline. I think there are so many healing mitigation options for frontline that it can be difficult to open with it on frontline. I think there are a lot of circumstances in Marvel Rivals where if you don't have the space to go for a backline kill, I think using a frontline ultimate is very appropriate. It can force CDs, it can create space. I just don't think Winter Soldier is the one to do it, because the problem with Winter Soldier ultimate is not that it's weak in terms of damage or utility. It's the fact that it's easy to block. It can be blocked with all manners of shields. And also, it puts you out of position. We already talked that you don't necessarily want to be on the front line directly in front of the tank. And yet, for you to actually apply your ultimate, you kind of have to be in front of that tank, right? An ultimate like Namor, it doesn't mean that Namor has to reposition himself. He could use it on the front line to kind of force some CDs and some stuff without actually putting himself in a bad position. So you really need to make sure that you're waiting for this mid-fight, waiting for those solo ult situations, and then going with that. And obviously, yes, keep in mind as well, if you do get the reset, it doesn't last forever. So if I get the reset there, it's going to last. You see that meter in the middle of my screen, it does last 8 seconds. One little life hack here. Do you see that red arrow over their heads? That means they're one-shottable with my ultimate. So if you're not sure about whether it's going to be enough damage to get that reset, look at that arrow. Now keep in mind, especially in Marvel Rivals, that arrow may not last very long. People's sustain is insane. So I've had a lot of times where I'm like, oh, I'm going to kill him. And then they're full HP, right? It happens. But that's an important situation to know. So a lot of words said to say, be patient with this ultimate, look for opportunities, and then go nuts with it. It is probably the worst ultimate in the game to open with, but it is one of the best, if not the best in the game to clean up fights. The last way that you can use this ultimate, little detail here, as Robin's pointing it out, you can absolutely use it to scare people and then just disengage. Ah! Nope, I'm out. If you're close to a support and that support is low and that support has an ultimate, you will force a support ultimate out of that. You go like, ah, and then just disengage. Totally worth, because you notice that I actually could put myself back on the angle. I could look like I'm going in, force a support ult, and then go out. And that's really useful because support ults you don't want to be standing still when you're support ulting. So if I force a support way over there to pop a support ult way over there, that gives my team a lot of time to be able to back out. And you don't have to mash it either. Like you can kind of sit on it and wait. 1, 2, 3. You can't do it forever because you do start to drop, but yeah. Okay, so let's actually look at a replay code here so we can kind of demonstrate this, because I think it's important to see somebody actually doing it. And I think I'm a good candidate because I'm not a perfect player. I'm a good player. I was able to reach Grandmaster, pretty darn good with the character in relation, but I'm not a pro. I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. I'm not like the greatest mechanical player of all time. So you're going to see some stuff where like even if you don't have mechanics, you're still able to put out good pressure. And I think like that's what we're going to be looking at here. In the meantime, though, this is exactly what we talked about in terms of short-range off angle. You're like, this is not an angle. What are you talking about? Yes, it is. Look at where my team, the enemy team is focused on, this sight line, and look at where I am. Just a little bit off to the side, right? To take an angle doesn't mean that you have to be by yourself. It just means that there's a crossfire. So if I'm the Venom here, who is this here? If I'm the Spider-Man, if I'm the Punisher, who am I really putting emphasis on? Who am I really looking at? This Venom is not ready for this. Or the Spider-Man, for that matter. There's the combo, hook, shoot, finish with the E, guaranteed. My tanks go in, now I have an angle on high ground, and now I can just kind of chill and shoot. He can't kill me. There's just no chance. Disclaimer, my mechanics, you know. Hook, shoot, shoot. Oh, by the way, one other detail I forgot to mention, with hooks that are long enough that aren't like point blank, you can actually shoot as they're coming in. So I think I might have been able to shoot even sooner here. So check this out. I actually am able to get a shot in before she's fully reeled in. So like, or right as she's reeled in. And actually in even greater ranges, you can actually get a shot in before they're fully hooked, which is really, really nice. So just keep that one in mind, passive aggressively. Now, this is kind of like one of those moments where it's just a little bit of ego. I know I'm full HP. I'm confident that I can get a shot at him before he swaps the shotgun. There was also a small chance that I actually hit him with my uppercut. So yeah, who's the best, guys? Let's find out. Notice I'm using cover, and I'm like, okay, wait, I don't have enough abilities. So he tries to third-person peek me because he had his right shoulder. And because he third-person peeks me, he kind of catches me off guard. I hit the hook, though. 1, 2. Slow. 1, 2. He's dead. This is an angle. Not a flank. Don't need a flank. Just shoot tank from the cover on the side. Avoid the Venom ultimate. Don't need support ultimate if you're off to the side. Avoid the Jeff ultimate because, again, I'm off to the side. Miss every single shot, though. Venom comes for me, but I still got cover. I still got healing. I still got my abilities. I still got my HP, so get the frick out of here, buddy. Pull him back in. I'm winning this HP trade. He's demanding so much more support than I am. Don't like where I'm at. I need to get out of here. I need to hook somebody or shoot something, and it needs to happen right now. I'm smack dab in the middle of the image. I get the pick. Nice, and then I go off to the side. I'm on the right angle instead of the left, which isn't optimal, but we'll take it. But again, I'm right in the middle here. Yeah, I think what had happened is we had popped Doctor Strange ultimate, and I tried to follow up and then ended up dying for it. Angle, shots, damage, deepening my flank. I have my ultimate, so I'm getting a little silly with it. And I see the red arrow. I see that she's isolated. I know she doesn't. There's no active ultimate. And here we go. I wait for, where are they? I missed that follow-up, but yeah, there you are. They're all dead. And that's how I talk about, like, cleanup fight. That was 5 people. They're all dead. They're all dead. Because my ultimate, OP, in that situation. Devolve fight, nobody's looking at me. I go on, I'm immediately 400 HP, and they're all dead. Okay, so we'll stop with that. I think it's really important that, like, if you guys have any questions, you can give them. But I hope it kind of demonstrated some of the good and the bad. I love this character. Easily my favorite character in Marvel Rivals. I honestly, one of my favorite characters I've ever played in any game, ever.